everyone. It's David Ault. Welcome to The Gathering. It's Christmas Eve, and whether or not you are someone who celebrates this holiday, or let's say that you have found this recording long after the season is over with, my intention and my hope is that the few things that we discuss here will be as rich and as potent and as relevant for you 365 days of the year as it would a simple Christmas message. And so with that, I can't help but reflect back on all of the Christmas messages throughout my career as a minister. And the thing that remains at the top with what I place value on in terms of these kinds of messages is this. The Christmas story, the story of the Christ child, the birth of the Christ child, is your story. It's my story. Meaning that it is an allegory or a metaphor for humanity and the possibility of what exists within humanity. And so when you remember, accept, recognize, and allow the fact that your birth is a holy birth, it's not by accident, that all of the factors involved that brought you into existence are a part of a beautiful sacred equation, and that you matter, then the message of the Christ child, the story of Christmas, revitalizes itself and then replicates itself, ripples out through your life, your choices, your example, your allowance of that to live, breathe in and as you. And that's the beauty of the cyclical nature of a holiday, right? Because between one season and the next season, there's a lot of forgetfulness. And we all share in that collective forgetfulness, but we also share in the collective reawakening. And so when we can celebrate a holiday, a season, a story, the cyclical nature of something like Christmas, when we can find community and like-mindedness that is willing to look beyond commercialism and find the deeper meaning of those things, then we are perpetually touching base with our roots, our true value, the capital S self of who and what we are. And no matter what you think about the holidays, the reality is it's a beautiful thing. It's a necessary thing if we are positioning ourselves to be able to receive something like that. And that's the goal of this message here today, is to remind you that the Christmas story is your story. And let's talk about what it is that is resistant to that. Because if there's only two energies going on, and I like to play with that idea, and those energies are resisting or allowing, then what is it that we are repelling, and what is it that we are giving permission to attract? And if we're not giving ourselves permission to attract and consider the idea that we are of a holy birth, that we matter, that we do at our very origin have this infinite potentiality, then why? Why? What is it within us? What is the lineage of belief within us that is repelling or resisting or pushing that away? And so some of the things that come to mind then for this is these three words. Consider the source. Consider the source. For the longest time, I have marveled at the inquisitiveness, the curiosity that exists within us. And the more curious a person is, the more willing we are to sit in the mystery and the question and go, why do I think that way? Why am I holding on to this story? The greater than the possibility of allowing ourselves to disassemble or disengage from a story that doesn't really serve us or that is filled with resistance. And so most of the time, the reasons why we would repel something as self-honoring as our holy birth is because we're holding on to a lot of beliefs that have been pushed upon us or held in place by us for a long, long time by people who were not willing or did not have the capacity to love themselves. And so when we say consider the source, I'm talking about all kinds of things. I'm talking about the beliefs that you hold near and dear. I'm talking about any ideology, be it old or new. It's like, well, where did that ideology come from? Consider the source of the person, because everything is filtered through the perception of the person who is talking. Even right now, I would say consider the source of who you're hearing what from. And that gives you the opportunity to really hold sacred your own personal power, your own discernment, and to go, maybe I like that, but this not so much. And you have this expanded permission within you to not accept just everything that's coming at you. You become wise, you become more discerning. And so to consider the source means to consider the source or the origin of your resistance. Is it because your parents said that? Is it because your religion said that? Is it because your culture has said that? And just because any of those things held some type of authority figure doesn't make it true. Because remember, the Christmas story is your story. You are birthed from infinite potentiality. And what I love about even the story of Jesus the Christ is that he outgrew his environment at a very young age. He left home long before, right, even before his teenage years, he was out of there. He was already more wise than the priest in the temple. He was already having intellectual conversations with adults who marveled at his ability and his insight and his discernment. And I want you to pause and go, and that is the same potentiality that exists within you. But what did he do? He acted upon the awareness that his environment could not hold the capacity for his next level of growth. And so the other thing after consider the source is to consider your environment. Look at your environment, be it physical, be it person, place, or thing. Is it an environment that is conducive for a beginner's mind? Is it an environment that is prosperous in championing you to hold yourself in a sacred space? Is it pushing you to a degree to expand, even at times when it's uncomfortable? Is it beckoning you to move into greater arenas of expression and creativity and connection? Because far too often in those periods of forgetfulness, we become very sedentary. We become very goal-oriented around comfort rather than expansion. And so the Christmas story is also a story about environment. It's about birthing something that is willing to move beyond limited or set boundaries by anything that has come before it. Consider the source and environment. Then the next thing I wrote is that the Christ consciousness, the expansiveness of that consciousness, also has the capability of holding two seemingly opposed things at once, meaning it has the ability to look at things from the principle of polarity. There is war and there is peace. There is light and there is dark. There is equality and there is inequality. And so the Christ conscious mind is able to look at those things and not dismiss or pick sides, but to look at those things and decide for themselves where they can be of most value. Here's what I mean by that. we are in a very heightened state of division, where everything within our world right now is pitting sides, and um, it's very tempting to say they're wrong and we're right, or we're wrong and they're right, and it just becomes so muddied and it's so loud. And so it's a prime example of polarity at play. And it becomes really quite something when the noise is so wants to be so loud that tells you that you're not right, or you're not doing enough, or that your voice is impotent, or your actions are impotent. And so you have to, first of all, consider the source. You have to really become discerning and going, who is it and where are they saying all of this stuff from? And then decide to hold both things and to go, what is it behind the warring? It's always fear. It's always fear. It's always the delusion of lack, of greed, of of continuing to do things the way that it's always been done. Greed is always the fear of loss. And so when you hold greed and sufficiency, when you hold greed and poverty, when you hold war and peace, again, all of these things, Christ consciousness, the birth of the Christ, the birth of you, and the potentiality of your consciousness is asking you to develop the muscle to be able to hold polarity, to look at those and to not become so tempted as to become lopsided in the needing to defeat something as much as it is asking you to get really clear about how you choose to serve. So hunger will always be. In this plane of existence, in this plane of duality, there will always be war. There will always be hunger. And so in understanding the polarity and also holding the fact that there is constantly solution at hand, infinite potentiality, but this part, this infinite potentiality, cannot be fully realized until you recognize that you are a vehicle for it. Then we will always be condemning this, but doing very little with regards to personal action. So, the Christ conscious mind, the expanded mind, the infinite potentiality notices this. It doesn't sweep it under the rug. It's not bypassing it, but it's more concerned with what can I do to soften the impact of the polarity that is more dense and more fear-based. What can I do to bring solution to the situation, to the world, to the circumstance? And before you start to say or feel as though you don't have the resource or the capability or the time or even the age left on the planet to do anything, let me correct you lovingly and saying that kindness is one of the most potent tools that we have. It's so easy to participate in the division of what exists, but kindness is a dismantling of so much of that density. It's a light that can penetrate so much darkness. If you chose as a spiritual practice to be kind, to help relieve suffering, then you are honoring the sacredness of your birth, your holy birth. And then the last thing is to always play in thought this idea, like when you wake up every day going, I'm here to create. I'm here to create. And the beautiful thing about that question from the platform of a holy birth, or the fact that you are a holy being, is that you become aware of creative process and the fact that you hold the power to your creative process. So when Jesus the Christ went off and went to different environments, he availed himself of beginner's mind, of being willing to learn and absorb and to strengthen his capacity to do the beautiful things that remain so influential even to this day. You and I have the same capability. We have the capability of the creative process of consciousness to be able to look and to choose solution, to be able to choose kindness, to be able to penetrate through the density of something that looks hopeless and find hope or choose hope even before we can see it. That's the beautiful thing about the stories of Jesus the Christ, is that even in the appearance of sickness, he saw, chose, and called forth wholeness. And you and I get to do the same thing. If we are to emanate the Christmas story of the birth of Christ consciousness, is to begin to practice all of these things, to become conscious and to consider the source of the things that we're holding near and dear. Like, where is that coming from? To begin to take stock of our environment, to begin to look at our capacity and willingness for beginner's mind, to hold the two polarities at the same time, and even in the midst of so much darkness, continuing to choose the light and to choose to be solution for those things, no matter what the world might label it in terms of significance. None of that matters, other than the fact that you keep choosing kindness, you keep choosing light. And then to wake up every day and going, I am here to create. I'm here to create. I'm here to use the creative process by means of me. And the way that I do that is, it's like making a demandment upon the human perception or the human visual, or what I can see with my human eye, is to begin to look at all of those things and demand that even in the absence of love, that love make itself known. You have the power to do that. I have the power to do that. And the thing about, what am I here to create? I'm here to use the creative process for the activity of creation. Why not use it at its most maximum and make demandments on all of that around you, that which is wholeness make itself known, that which is love make itself known, that which is resourceful make itself known. And in that way, we lessen those periods of forgetfulness. So it's like we're not trying to rush for Christmas to be over. We're like thankful and going, oh, okay, cool. Another reminder, a much needed reminder of the sacred birth of me, of you. And maybe instead of now putting that to bed for another year and then dragging it back out for the next holiday, that I begin to take the gift of that, the most precious gift of all, gift of self-honoring, and I begin to use it in a way that isn't self-absorbed, but is self-permeated throughout the rest of the world in a way that helps other people to reawaken. And that's what we do. We become the pebble in the ripple that continues to expand and expand the reawakening of all humanity. That's what Christmas is about for me. It's about coming back out of the darkness. It's about waking up from the big sleep. It's about the North Star in the sky that keeps beckoning people to come to this holy position of honoring, so that we can look at the innocence of our being, our birth, and to celebrate that, and to find ways to nurture that, to support it, to outgrow so that it can grow, to learn to question, to learn to ask and discern and to hold the seeming polarities of life so that we're not constantly caving every single time there seems to be something so horrid, because those things will always be here. So what's our role? Our role is to be the Christ. Our role is to be the holy human. Our role is to allow that which is spirit to move and to breathe and to have its being as means of us. May you find ways this season to allow all of that to be true for you. Thank you so much for always coming and celebrating and listening and commenting and participating. It means so much to me. It supports my creativity, and hopefully it supports your creativity into moving into greater degrees of empowerment. Blessed Christmas, happy holidays, happy New Year to you, and I look forward to so much more. God bless.